Welcome into the first episode of the PuntCast on KohlsNews.com. I'm your host, correspondent for Kohl's News, Dan Tracy. Excited to kick off this new regular feature on our website. If this is your first time on Kohl's News, welcome to the relatively new site, which debuted last October as your resource for the best kicking, punting, and snapping news from specialists around the country. If you're familiar with KohlsNews.com, you're probably familiar with our parent site, KohlsKicking.com, where you can find all the latest information about our nationwide kicking, punting, and snapping camps, as well as player rankings, videos, articles that show the success that Kohl's Kicking has had over the last 15 years. To start our first episode of the PuntCast, I figured let's bring in the man behind the last 15 years developing the best specialists in the country. He was an all-state kicker as a high school senior in the great state of Wisconsin, a 4-year starter and all-time leader in PATs made as an Iowa State Cyclone, free agent signee with the Seattle Seahawks in 1999, and now as the director of Kohl's Kicking, he works with thousands of athletes every year who are looking to take this next step as a specialist. He's Jamie Kohl. Jamie, how are you?
Doing good, Dan. Excited to get this podcast started and excited to see what this develops into.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of been an interesting time for now that we're right in the midst of the football season. But I want to bring you back to July and ask you first about the success of your largest annual event. It takes place in southern Wisconsin. You guys were bouncing back and forth between Kettle Moraine High School and Wisconsin Whitewater this year, the National Elite and Invitational Scholarship Camps. I was lucky enough to be there and see it firsthand, and the level of talent on display over those 4 days is insane. There's just so much talent from all over the country, high school, college, NFL guys. Now that we're in the midst of the football season, Jamie, how have you seen the success from that camp specifically transition into success on the field for the college and NFL guys that were there? And then also, the additional recruiting interest that for some of the high school kids who performed well.
Well, starting off at the NFL level, it's just kind of fun to see the progress that our guys have had over the years. And, you just look at NFL leading punt, NFL average leaders in net punt and in gross punt. It's littered with guys who have been to that camp. Marquette King from the Oakland Raiders, Thomas Morstead from the New Orleans Saints, Tim Mastic from the Green Bay Packers, Pat McAfee from the Indianapolis Colts. Those are all guys who routinely have made it up to the Wisconsin Elite Camp, and year in and year out do a great job. On the kicking side, Justin Tucker is a guy who's doing extremely well. Dustin Hopkins is a drafted guy. There's many other guys in the NFL right now who are putting up big numbers who have been to that event. So those guys get something out of the competition that takes place, the sharing of stories, the sharing of knowledge, the video breakdown, and really it's kind of a way for them to feel confident heading into their NFL season that they're prepared, ready to go. On the college level, guys who are doing a great job, it's amazing how the field goal percentages have gone up over the years. And, a lot of our guys right now are either one miss or perfect on the season. A guy that sticks out to me is Roberto down at Florida State. Is a guy who is doing an amazing job on a top-level team. There's a bunch of guys. Cody Parkey is putting up big numbers, and, I think is going to be a drafted kicker in this upcoming year's draft. There's Richie Leone from the University of Houston, who's done a great job punting and talking with NFL people, is one of the top punting prospects to come out of this year's draft. So there's a lot of guys in that mix. I think we had 100 college guys in attendance, and I would guess that out of those 100 guys, there'll be at least 10 to 12 guys signed with NFL teams via free agency or via NFL draft this upcoming spring.
Now let's talk a little bit about the high school guys and more specifically the ones that you selected for the Under Armour game and the Semper Fi game, which is something new. How have you seen those opportunities to be able to compete for a spot, to compete, or to play on national television in these huge high school games? How have you seen those opportunities benefit your camps? And you've selected the Under Armour kickers and specialists for the last 4 years.
Well, it started actually about 8 years ago with a friend of mine, Tom Lemmy. And Tom at that time was associated with the Army All-American game. And Tom said, hey, why don't you come on down and help out with that event and then get to see it, get to see what it's all about. And so we did that for 3 years. And that was a good event for us. And, I was impressed with the gathering of talent at that event. And then my friends over at ESPN kind of said, you know what, we're doing the Under Armour game, and we feel that this is going to be the biggest event in the nation coming forward because of our backing and because of Under Armour and the support they have and the facilities and being in Florida and the nice warm weather and all that they have with Disney. And when you look at the talent that has gone to that camp over the years, they've made true on that promise. We've been fortunate enough the last 4 years to be able to select the kickers, the punters, the snappers to that event. And you can see the guys now, this past year's class, Dustin Hopkins was the first guy that we've been associated with that had been there, and he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills. So there's a lot of talent that goes to those games. Now, obviously, college careers, there's a lot of things that an athlete has to go through, but at least talent-wise, the guys that are selected to those events have shown a tremendous ability to be able to hit a ball high, far, and accurately under pressure situations. This past year, we've had the good fortune of being asked to do the Semper 5 game, and that's led by the Marines, and it's off in California, and it's, again, a very, very prestigious event covered by Fox Sports. And so we've selected now, our total selections are 10 athletes that we can select to these two major bowl games. And it's a huge advantage for these athletes to put on their resume. It distinguishes them from their peers and gives everybody an opportunity to go for a paid week to train with some of the best football players in America. And a lot of these guys will go on to NFL greatness. So it's a neat networking deal for everybody involved.
Now, back to the national camp. You've got the guys that are able to stand out in that week in Southern Wisconsin, and now that we're into the high school playoff season, you've really got a full body of work for some of those guys that stood out at the national camp, and some other guys that have emerged. Who are the high school kickers, right now? Because you and your staff spend the majority of your time throughout the year training and developing, kids at the high school level. Who are some of the guys that have really stood out this season at the high school level?
Well, there's a lot of guys right now putting up good numbers.
Right.
Our national camp this past year was the biggest special teams event that I personally have ever heard of. We had roughly 500 in attendance, and it was and then when I say 500, probably about 380 of those are kicker punters, about 100 to 120 were snappers.
Right.
So we had a good group to be able to choose talent from. These kids came from every state in the United States. They came from out of the United States themselves. From foreign
Denmark.
country players were there. Yeah, we had guys from all over. And really, in a set like that, we have to go a lot on how they compete, the type of performances they pose. And there were some guys that definitely took advantage of that stage, and one in particular is a guy like Jake Hartberger. Mm-hmm. Jake was a guy who had a great frame. He looked the part, but he did not have any Division I schools offering. Immediately after that camp, he had offers from about 5 different schools, and he chose Michigan State over Oklahoma and Iowa State and some other BCS schools. And that footage of him competing against guys like J.K. Scott from the University of Alabama, a guy like Sean Neuenberger from Ohio State, Cameron Gamble from LSU, those types of guys where he's out there and he's getting it done, and he looks the part, and being able to compete on that in that arena, I think really propelled him to get that extra boost that needed to convince Michigan State he was worthy. So he's a guy that really took advantage of that, and it showed. And when you talk about high school guys who are having great seasons, there's a lot of guys out there right now that have 14 to 15 field goals made. There's a lot of guys out there that have a punt average over 45 yards for the season. So it's kind of, I'm going to wait until the season's done to really highlight any guy in particular. I just feel that there's too much work out there left to be done for a lot of guys, and it's really close to the top.
You mentioned Roberto and Cody as 2 college guys that stood out. I think one of the coolest parts about that week, at the elite and scholarship camp, is those guys that are competing as college kickers. Some of them stick around for an extra 2 days to help coach those high school kickers, because they were in their shoes just a few years prior, and I think that's a great thing that Kohl's has done to have those. To have the Florida State, the Florida, Northwestern, all these, great college kickers that stick around and are able to mentor these high school kids. What college guys, even aside from Roberto and Cody, have really had good seasons and are putting themselves, in positions to help their teams?
I got Jeff Budzine from Northwestern. Jeff's a guy who's been with us for 8-9 years already, and just a solid guy. I mean, you can tell he's liked by his teammates, his head coach. He does a lot of the media stuff actually for Northwestern, and he's a guy that when you talk about, who can you learn from? Jeff is a young man who just has worked extremely hard and has put up some of the best field goal numbers in the country the last 2 years, and has moved himself into a position to be an NFL potentially kicker, which if you'd have seen Jeff in high school, Jeff is about 145, 150 pounds, dripping wet, and his kickoffs were nowhere near where they're at right now. And Jeff's a guy that, he has a story. He talks about how academics drove his decision to go to college. And I think it's really cool when a guy like that can tell that story to high school kids, and they can relate. They can look at Jeff and see that Jeff, builds himself up to all the 175 pounds now and see what he's doing and think, what? Why can't that be me? I know when I was that age, that really helped me. I set, I had people that I looked up to and set goals, and those people helped me set some of those goals, and they were kind of some of my mentors along the journey.
Now, looking at the NFL, this is a unique year for you because you have two guys in Caleb Sturgis and Dustin Hopkins. You mentioned Caleb earlier. You began working with him in high school, and you've been able to see that full transition from high school to college and now to the NFL. And I know that you've done some additional work. I know Thomas has been, a huge help for you working at camps, especially the national camp. And I know you were in his wedding this summer, so obviously you guys have a tight relationship. At the NFL level, to me, Thomas Morstad, Tim Mastay, Marquette King, those guys are putting up huge numbers right now. Marquette is fourth in net punt. Thomas is ninth. I mean, they're doing a great job. How have you seen those NFL guys really step up this season so far?
Well, I think the thing with NFL is a lot of the stats are conditional based.
Right.
Last year Thomas had the second highest net punt average in NFL history. He 2 years ago broke the NFL touchback record on kickoffs, selected to the Pro Bowl this past season. And, I think now a lot of the when you look at who the top guys in the NFL are, his name is in that mix every year now. And, a lot of when you look at the stats, especially mid-season, the season, generally they're based on opportunity. And, if you have short fields, it's going to be tougher to have a big-time punt average, in comparison to long fields. So a lot of your stats are predicated upon how good your offense is. Field goal stats, and I don't want to just totally dismiss playing outside in cold weather is that, you can't be as good because there have been guys who have put up great stats, but if you kick in a dome or you kick in a warm weather climate, that should help your field goal stats every year. Probably take away 3 to 4 misses that would be occurring if you played in a worse weather stadium. So, when you look at stats, you look at guys that are doing well, I think a big thing is how do they perform given the opportunities they have? To me, that is really what we judge people by, and that would require you to look at it, kick by kick, season at a glance, look at how they're performing overall. But to your point, I think all those guys are doing an extremely good job. Marquette's a guy I knew about from the first moment I saw him. This kid had the potential, and he really, to his credit, refined himself to the point that an NFL coach trusted his salary on him, and he's not letting him down. That's for sure. He's doing a great job.
Now, I know the fall is a little bit of an off season for you, personally. You get the opportunity to do some coaching at the high school level. You get to go to an Iowa State game or two. But as the ticker on the bottom of the KohlsKicking.com page tells us, we're only 32 days away from the beginning of the showcase season, so things are about to get cranked up again. What can you say about this year's showcases, and what other venues are you really looking forward to with Kohl's Kicking this year, over the next few months?
Well, we always get excited for the December Showcase Camp Tour because it's such a big time in a lot of specialists' lives. There's that window. There's windows in your athletic career, and for the seniors, the window is to try to find one of those few remaining D1 scholarships that are out there. There's still a lot of 1AA, what I consider those 1AA FCS schools looking. There's a lot of D2 schools looking, and the D3 schools really haven't even begun to recruit hard. So there's a lot of opportunity for seniors out there trying to find a home, trying to really make an impression late before the February signing date. Now, for the sophomores and juniors, it's now a time really to start the fight of trying to get ranked and trying to position yourself in a spot where your resume is strong enough that a college coach will really give you a very, very hard and thorough look. And that's really what these guys are fighting for. We're going to invite the top 10% of the underclassmen down to the Underclassmen Challenge January 2nd and 3rd in Tampa, St. Pete. And that'll be in conjunction with the Under Armour All-American game. And, that's an exciting time. Last year, it was basically, when you look at the top 20 guys nationally who have signed, I believe 17 to 16 of those guys were present at that camp.
Wow.
And so it's a very, very good gathering of national talent and guys who are really going to make a name in years to come at the college level.
Wow. All right. Well, I mean, it's an exciting time. I'm hoping myself to make it to that showcase, the Midwest one up in Wisconsin, and I know that it definitely when you get into the off season for the kickers, punters, and snappers, it's exciting for the high schoolers and really everybody involved with Kohl's Kicking. Jamie, I want to thank you for joining me today. Thank you for the opportunity we have at KohlsNews.com that you've given us to provide kicking, punting, snapping news from all over the country, and thank you for joining me, being the first guest on the initial PuntCast.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here, and good luck with everybody the rest of the season.
All right, until next time, I'm Dan Tracy. Thanks for tuning in to the PuntCast on KohlsNews.com.